I love how this movie, showed the struggle of being lost and feeling like you're not enough, feeling like you don't fit in your skin. I think that really showed how sometimes women can feel in society, that you're not really recognized or appreciated for anything you're doing other than when it comes to your appearance. And this is the youngest you'll ever be. In this second right now. In this second, this is the youngest you'll ever be. Life's not perfect. Life is not perfect. It's time to get loud. Welcome back to LoudTalk with Lavi, a podcast where we break down the walls of beauty standards one flaw at a time. Thank you for joining me in today's episode. I kind of decided to film this episode on a whim, but I'm very excited because my mind has not been able to shut it. Over the past 24 hours, last night I went to go watch the Barbie movie in theaters, and let me tell you, I have not stopped thinking about this movie ever since I left the theaters, and I did not think that the movie would affect me this much, but the people were right, okay? The people were right in saying that this movie is so much more than just, a movie that's, fun and playful and about Barbie and, dolls and nostalgia. This movie had so many life lessons within it, and they did such a good job at, delivering these lessons in such a light way, but that still touched you. I don't know, they did it very, very well. So I wanted to sit down and do just a full debrief of my thoughts on the movie, because there was so much talk about beauty standards and what it means to be a woman, the pressures of society, all of this stuff, just conversations that not all of us talk about. And in this podcast, we get loud about topics just like this. So I thought, I have to film an episode all about my thoughts on the Barbie movie. So if you have not seen the movie yet, I will say spoiler alert in this episode, because I'm literally going to be walking us through the full plot of the movie and just talking about my thoughts on it and, taking it back to the conversations around beauty standards, what it means to be a woman, and some of these pressures that we can feel from society. So, yeah. Little warning there, little spoiler alert. But first of all, I didn't know what I was expecting from the plot. I knew that, Barbie was going to go into the real world, but I wasn't expecting it to have such eye-opening messages about what it means to be human, what it means to find your purpose in life. And it's interesting because recently I have been struggling with this idea of am I on the right track? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I doing enough? Am I working hard enough? All of these things. And it's kind of that internal battle, and I really love how they actually illustrated this in the movie. Oh my gosh, I just searched up the Barbie movie on Google, and it literally showed up all in pink. That is so funny. But I want to walk through, the plot and kind of where it walks us through. And I would say the movie started off really playful and fun, just walking you through the typical Barbie world that you would imagine, right? Everything is perfect, water doesn't exist, drinks don't exist, all this stuff. When she's showering, it's so funny because there's no water coming out, and when she's drinking a glass of milk, no milk is coming out of the cup. But very just that perfection Barbie-esque world where everything just is the same day in, day out, just the perfect world. And all of a sudden, Barbie has a day where, it doesn't go the same after the party where she basically said, does anyone ever think about death? And everyone was like, huh? Which is interesting because, living in this perfect world, why is she having thoughts like that where it's questioning her existence? One thing I do want to say before I get into all of this is I think they did such a great job at marketing Barbie and still making this whole movie an entire ad for the Barbie franchise while still delivering such great messages. It honestly, from a industry perspective, they did such an incredible job at marketing Barbie franchise, but also, still making it a relatable movie and still delivering nostalgia and still making you laugh and cry and literally hitting every single emotion. So round of applause for the creators of this movie and everyone who kind of went into it. But, she has this existential crisis, which I think is very relatable for a lot of us, because you can't sit there and tell me you've never thought about death or afterlife or your existence or what it means to be human, why you are on this earth, or what is the meaning behind life, and just these thoughts, right? They consume us sometimes, and it can feel scary when you start to think these things because there's so much unknown that it can be terrifying, and she definitely has that feeling. And then things just start to go wrong. She starts to feel emotion, and these are all very simple things she's feeling that a lot of us, feel in our everyday lives. But for her, it becomes so overwhelming because she hasn't felt these things before. And I think the whole questioning her existence, questioning why things are all of a sudden feeling out of place, is a very relatable feeling, because we've all had days where we wake up and things just feel off. You're doing your routine. Obviously, your routine probably doesn't go as perfect as Barbie's every day, but you're doing your routine and things just feel off. It just feels like a shit day. You wake up on the wrong side of bed, your hair's not sitting good, like your breakfast that you make every day didn't turn out as good, like just a bad day, right? So they definitely did a good job at kind of showing that, and I really liked how they just made her become so relatable from one day to the next. Like the day before, you can't relate to a doll that has a perfect life every day, but then that next day where everything's kind of just crumbling apart, I think was something that a lot of people could definitely relate to. Now throughout the movie, we see Barbie become very panicked over how her physical appearance is changing. Her hair is not sitting perfect. She goes to talk to Weird Barbie, I think they call her, and she's like, oh, I have cellulite, my feet are flat. That was a huge thing. And you saw how everyone reacted to when they saw her flat feet, because it was out of the ordinary. Like everybody had tiptoed feet, and then hers were flat, and that like kind of stood out and made her feel like she didn't belong in society, which as humans watching this, we're all like, that's so silly because we all like walk flat-footed. But it was just a great example of like how she felt so out of place in that moment when she was supposed to be the representation of a stereotypical perfect Barbie doll. Like there were so many Barbies in this show, right? And all different paths of life, all different careers, all different looks, from super thin to more plus size Barbies to different skin colors, different hair colors, literally everything, right? But what's the one thing they all had in common? They never had a bad day, right? They looked perfect in their own standard of beauty, right? They looked perfect in whatever capacity that their definition of perfect was. But Barbie, she was that stereotypical Barbie, the thin blonde, just like not one hair out of line Barbie. So to see her struggle with her image, I think was a really great portrayal of how we can almost be so harsh on ourselves, and we can be our biggest critic and really start to nitpick such little things. Like she had one cellulite on her leg, and it freaked her out, right? So from the outside, you're watching this and you're like, that's so silly, right? Like she's literally got it all and she is stressing about one cellulite. But you have to really think about that in your own life and kind of look at yourself and how you nitpick yourself from a bit of an outside perspective and realize, like, is this silly what I am, criticizing myself for? I have a pimple on my face and I'm beating myself up for it. Or, my hair looks like this and I'm beating myself over it. Like, whatever it is that you criticize yourself for and you judge yourself for, like, think of how small that may look from an outside perspective, right? So that was one observation I made right off the bat, of how she was really quick to kind of criticize herself and be like, I have to fix this, I have to get to the bottom of this, because I cannot be unperfect. I cannot have this beauty standard that I, am obtaining be destroyed. So her initial focus was to fix the problem, but the problem wasn't that she had cellulite. The problem was much deeper than that, much more emotional, and actually, emotional than a physical trait, which I think is a beautiful way to kind of show this storyline, because she went from hunting down, trying to find the girl that was playing with her in the real world to fix her cellulite and her flat feet and just make her life perfect again. But really, there was so much more lessons to be learned and so much more inner healing that she had to do to actually figure out who she was, which really goes to show you that you can try to fix what you're insecure about. You can try to, think that, oh, I'll be confident, I'll be happy with myself, I'll love myself once I lose 10 pounds, once I clear my skin, whatever it is, right? And you're trying to almost band-aid that physical aspect of yourself. But it really comes down to so much more of that, and you actually have to do the inner healing of the emotional part of yourself to actually gain self-love, self-confidence, self-reassurance. And it's not really about your physical aspect at all. So I really enjoyed how they portrayed that in the movie, for sure. Now, when she entered, the real world, immediately she was shocked by how almost, I don't want to say cruel, but how harsh the real world is. And it was interesting because you kind of felt that emotion with her, as she's walking around and no one's appreciating her, no one's giving her the time of day, no one's paying attention to her, right? Other than like those men who are maybe catcalling her and all of that. And I think that really showed how sometimes women can feel in society, that you're not really recognized or appreciated for anything you're doing other than when it comes to your appearance. Another thing that I think this illustrated was that you are more focused on yourself, but you think people are going to also give you that focus when really no one's looking at you, no one's going about worrying about your problems, right? Like she was walking around worried, trying to find a solution to her problems, but no one else was batting an eye to try and help her. And all of this worry that she had built up was just for her. No one else was giving that worry. I also really enjoyed the scene where she was sitting on the bench at the bus stop and she looked over towards the old lady, and I think it clicked in her brain how beautiful this older lady was, even though she was aged, even though she had wrinkles, and her skin was aged and she had white hair and all of this. And I think Barbie in that moment realized that all of these things that she was running from, the fact of having a wrinkle on her face or cellulite on her body or just aging and losing her like young beauty, she realized in that moment that beauty carries on throughout all your stages in life, and I think we all try to latch on to this permanent youth. And it's so interesting, this is kind of a separate conversation, but this aged filter has become so popular right now on TikTok, and all I'm seeing is people use this filter and just hate what they're seeing, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I better get the skincare out, I better, start wearing sunscreen because holy, I don't want to look like this, And I find it so interesting because you have to realize you're using that filter and it's portraying you aged. And one, aging is such a blessing. It is such a privilege to be able to age. And it's not something that everyone will get to experience. So you really have to understand how much of a blessing that is to be able to age in this life. But when you're using this filter, and if you've used this filter, you have to realize you're using it and this is the youngest you'll ever be. In this second right now. In this second, this is the youngest you'll ever be. And as days go on, you will age, So you're spending so much of your life hating on yourself, looking in the mirror, criticizing yourself, being self-conscious about how you look. So it's like if you're looking at yourself aged and you are just absolutely hating what you see in that filter, and you can't even appreciate the beauty and the youngness you have right now, when are you ever going to love yourself then? You don't love yourself how you look when you're older. You don't love yourself now. When is that going to happen? So you have to realize, this is the youngest I am right now. Let me love my youthful body, and then let me grow to love the aged body that I will once obtain if I'm, privileged enough to get there. So I really love how they just added that scene in because it really showed the small growth she already had over this short period of time in the movie. And then it was also really interesting seeing Ken's development of how he realized that he was really not seen in Barbie Land. And no one cared about him, even Barbie, who was supposed to be his best friend, his so-and-so girlfriend, whatever. But in the real world, he was respected and he was acknowledged, and that felt good. And kind of fast forwarding to the end of the movie, I really like that they didn't let either side kind of win. They didn't go back to how Barbie Land was because obviously there was issues with Barbie World. But they reached a point where both sides, the Barbies and the Kens, both felt appreciated, both felt important, and both felt like they brought value to their society, which I really, really loved how they did that. And it kind of showed what's kind of wrong with both sides of the world and kind of taking it too far on either side, and kind of giving power and showing the skills and the benefits that all the Barbies and all the Kens can bring, and if they really work together, how beautiful of a place that can bring. So I really did enjoy that. But going back to some of the thoughts here, the end of the movie where Barbie is really just stuck on where her purpose is, where her life is going, that really hit a chord with me, because as I said, I've been feeling a little down lately, a little in a funk, because I feel like, I'm doing all this stuff, I'm working on this podcast, I'm working on my YouTube channel, I'm working on TikTok and Instagram and trying to build a community, and sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. And it's a really shitty feeling to feel, because when you are doing so much, that's typically when these thoughts creep in of you're not doing enough, and what is your purpose? What are you really doing in your life? What are you bringing to the world? And she definitely had these moments, because she was saying, like, I'm not a doctor, I'm not president, I'm not this, I'm just Barbie, I'm just stereotypical Barbie. And she is told in that moment that she is so much more than that. She inspires people, she helps people, right? Like, there is so much more than just the title that you were given or what people see, like surface value of you. So I really, really liked how they did that. And I also liked how they had the creator of Barbie in the movie kind of give Barbie that, I don't want to say permission, but she let her see that she can do anything she wants to do. And I think so many of us kind of restrict ourselves in life and tell ourselves that we can't do certain things because of, maybe the upbringing we had, our background, our financial situation, or just where we are at in life. And it really goes to show that you can really change your life around any minute that you decide to actually commit to it, right? And she wanted to become human in the end, but she had to commit to that decision and just full on, dive into that and kind of have no regrets in that, which I really enjoyed how they portrayed. There were a few quotes in the movie that were some of my favorites here. One of them being, because Barbie can be anything, women can be anything. And I really loved this because, they're right in saying that they really showed that Barbie, it wasn't a typical doll as they were before Barbie came, which were all, baby dolls. And it really put little girls in that position of motherhood and taking care of something, which of course motherhood is such a amazing part of being a woman, and there are so many amazing mothers out there, and I truly believe that a lot of women are just meant to be mothers, like they're just so good at that. But there's so much more to being a woman, right? So Barbie as dolls really showed girls that you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be this, but you can still be Barbie, you can still be beautiful and feminine. And I love this because for myself, I definitely struggled with that growing up. I was always really into math and science. When I expressed that I wanted to go into STEM and engineering, I did get people kind of look at me and be like, well, you're a girly girl, you love your heels, you love your makeup, like how the hell are you going to fit into the engineering world? And it's like, you can have beauty and brains. Those two can be used in the same sentence, and it's kind of just proving to the world that just because you look a certain way doesn't mean that you can't be something great. So I loved that quote, because Barbie can be anything, women can be anything. And it really just goes to show, like, you can do anything you want, whether you're a man or a woman, anything that the world might doubt you in, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. So I love that. I also love the quote, humans only have one ending, ideas live forever. That stood with me so much because all of these ideas we put into the world and all of this work we put into the world, that lives on, and even memories, memories and stuff, like they live on. And that I really like, because I think a lot of us have struggles with understanding and like maybe thinking about like death. And I'm not going to get into that too much in this podcast because I think that could be like a whole 3-hour episode in itself of, it's a heavy topic, but it gets a lot of us thinking, right? And kind of maybe makes you anxious. But, your ideas, your work, like that lives on, right? So do what you want in life and live to inspire. And that reminds me of another quote that I really enjoyed from the movie, which was, the real world is not perfect, but you inspire me. And nothing's perfect, you know, but we can find those glimmers. I learned this new term, glimmers, from my episode with Taylor E. Ford that was last week. Glimmers are basically these small moments of good, you know. There's like triggers in life, which are kind of these small moments that can make you feel anxious or small. And then glimmers are those small moments that make you feel big and happy. And I loved this, that, you know, the world is not perfect, but you inspire me. And that just kind of gave me that light to continue doing what I do, because I know that I inspire people. I know that because I'm told it. And I can't change the whole industry of beauty standards. I am one person, but if I can continue inspiring person by person by person, that fulfills my purpose. And I have to just keep reminding myself of that, you know, this whole thing I'm doing is not to necessarily reach an end goal. There's nothing finite in this, you know. It's just to continue inspiring person by person and continue becoming more inspired myself to, you know, spread this and break down the walls of beauty standards one flaw at a time. So I really enjoyed that quote. Okay, kind of shifting gears here. I loved how much they highlighted being enough. And the way that I have listened to Billie Eilish's What Was I Made For song for literally the past 24 hours. I'm not even kidding you guys. Like, I watched this movie last night, all day today while I was at work, coming back from work. I went to the mall. This song was in my ears like the whole time. And the words of this song is so fucking powerful. Like, holy crap. I cannot believe how they were able to capture so much in a song. Like, beautiful, beautiful lyrics. And it's just that feeling of like, what was I made for? What is my purpose? You know, am I enough? You know, why am I sad? Am I worthy of happiness? Am I worthy to feel enough in my own body and in my own life? And I love how this movie, you know, showed the struggle of being lost and feeling like you're not enough, feeling like you don't fit in your skin. And then they came to the end of it, and Barbie started to feel enough, you know, regardless of how she looked, regardless of maybe stepping outside the walls of being stereotypical Barbie. But I also love how they included Ken in this conversation, because Ken, his whole life, his purpose was to be the Ken to the Barbie, you know, Barbie and Ken. And at the end of the movie, Barbie was like, it's Barbie and it's Ken. It's not Barbie and Ken. You are Ken, you know. And it gave him this sense of self, this sense of identity, this sense of self that allowed him to detach from Barbie and become his own and feel that he is enough as just Ken. Because his whole existence was surrounded and fueled by Barbie giving him attention. And I think so many of us can relate to this, because we feel like our existence, our importance of self is fueled by other people. You know, we put so much pressure and energy on what other people think about us. And we think that, you know, we should only feel successful and accomplished if other people recognize it. We should only feel beautiful if other people recognize our beauty and other people see our beauty. We should only feel, you know, smart if other people acknowledge our brains. We should only feel valid if other people are giving us that validation. But really, it's not about the other people. It's about how you feel with yourself, how you feel if you feel secure in yourself, if you feel confident in yourself, if you know that you are smart enough, if you know that you are talented enough, and if you know that you are beautiful enough, and above all, that you are enough and deserving to be happy, to be fulfilled, and to be successful. And I think so many of us limit ourselves of what we are capable of and create these boundaries around us and don't let ourselves be happy, or don't let ourselves feel success or validation, because we deprive ourselves of it because we think we can only get that from someone else. And that is exactly what Ken felt. He felt that if Barbie was not acknowledging him and giving him that sense of self, he was not deserving of anything. Whereas by the end, you kind of had this full circle moment where he sat there and he was like, I am enough. as Ken, I am enough for myself. You know, I can still be a friend to Barbie. I can still be in her life and be a great influence for her, but I will not let myself let her define me. I will define myself. You know, people add to your life. Let those people add to your life, add to your happiness, but do not make them the source of your happiness or your well-being or your sense of fulfillment. Let them add. Let them, you know, top up your cup, but let yourself fill your cup up yourself. So I loved how they did that whole storyline with Ken, and even though this movie was so focused around Barbie, they also gave Ken his time, and I really loved the messages that came out of that. Now I want to kind of shift a little bit to the messages about motherhood that they gave in this movie, because that made me really emotional. Coming from I guess to give you a bit of background, my family immigrated to Canada when I was pretty young. I was like 3 or 4, and this has, I think, created this fuel in me to constantly work hard and be successful and make, you know, a good life for myself, because I want to make my parents proud for the sacrifices they made to give me and my brother, quote unquote, a better life. And there's almost this pressure that I put on myself to show them that their sacrifices were worth it, because me and my brother will make them proud. And I've talked to a lot of other, you know, immigrant kids that have felt that same way. And I think it's a very common feeling. And the one quote that they said in the movie, they said, "We mothers stand still so our daughters can look back to see how far they've come." When they said that line, I literally, it was like I got hit by a truck of emotion, because I'm so eternally grateful for my parents for giving up so much and sacrificing their 20s and their 30s and everything they basically worked for in life to bring me and my brother here and basically start from scratch. And that was a gift that no one else can ever, you know, overcome, because they put their lives on hold to let me and my brother move forward in life and give us better opportunities. And that just goes to show that sometimes the sacrifices your parents have to make for their kids. And that line was really powerful, because as kids, you know, we grow, we become our own people, and you can really look back at your family to see how far you've come. And I thought that was a beautiful way to kind of show the importance of family and kind of those sacrifices that sometimes your parents make just for you. So that was a really cool one. So that was a really powerful line. Okay, going back to Ken, because I forgot a quote here. This one said, this was right at the start of the movie, and it was, "Barbie has a great day every day, but Ken only has a great day if Barbie looks at him." I love this, because I think it goes back to how much power we give other people, and that if, you know, other people are giving us that validation, we are going to have a good day, which is not how it should be. Look at how Barbie had a good day every day, you know, and obviously she was dealing with her own stuff, and once kind of her self-image was being distraught by her thoughts, she wasn't having a perfect day, but her day went on. You know, she had her routine, she had her things going for her, and Ken relied so much on what Barbie thought of him. And he only allowed himself to be happy and have a good day if she gave him that, you know, piece of reassurance, which was a very powerful thing. And it goes to show how much energy we usually give to other people to allow us to have a good day or not. And sometimes the other people can even be ourselves. We don't let ourselves have a good day unless our skin's perfectly clear or we look just absolutely perfect. And we need to stop restricting our happiness in those ways and just let ourselves have those perfect days, even if they're essentially not quote unquote perfect, because life's not perfect, you know, life is not perfect. And that was also another part that I really enjoyed, when Barbie was kind of really down and she was like, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? And I don't know the girl's name, but the mom of the little girl, she was like, that's life. And I think so many of us have to just accept that life is this roller coaster, and you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, but all of it is a learning lesson, one huge learning lesson. And I'm someone who really believes that everything happens for a reason in your life. And I think that you have to take everything good and bad and just take it all in. Take it all in and don't focus so much on, what's good, what's bad, and just focus on what am I going to learn out of this? How am I going to make the best of this situation? How am I going to take this bad and turn it into something good? So I really like that. Oh my gosh, how could I forget? Okay, we have to get into the mom's whole speech about the rights and wrongs of being a woman, because that was so powerful. Of, all of these societal expectations, of these standards that are put around us, of, you can't be to this, but but you have to be just the right amount of this and this and this and this. I think as women, we are often in this constant competition to be the best, but not too good. To stand out, but not too much that other girls become envious of you, or that you become other girls' competition. We should be supportive of one another, but we also need to find a way to stand out from the crowd still. And then we're constantly pitted against each other in comparison of our beauty. And one thing I appreciate about this movie is they never pitted the Barbies against each other. They never compared their looks. They were always comparing themselves to themselves. And I think that is one issue in this real world, is we have so much trouble seeing each person for their individual traits and holding everyone to the same standard of beauty, which is so messed up because everyone's so different. And I think we need to start, looking at these Barbies and realizing that although all of them look so different, they're all Barbie. They're all this idea of perfection, and they all obtain their own beauty standard. Whereas I think in life we can kind of try to all fit into the same box when all of us women look so different, but we are also beautiful in our own way. So that's one huge lesson that you can take away from this movie and hopefully kind of reflect on. And kind of become your own Barbie, become your own version of your beauty standard, become your own beauty standard that you are trying to achieve each and every day through learning to love yourself, but also still allow room to improve yourself. I've talked about this before, but don't compare yourself to someone else's beauty, because that person probably is comparing themselves to your beauty, and so on and so forth, and it's this endless circle. So really just try to look at yourself the way others would see you, and be kind to yourself is an important one as well. I think one thing that I found interesting was how they were able to show that Barbies have problems too, because I think growing up, we all played with Barbies, or to some extent at least knew what Barbies were, but we always thought of Barbies as this perfect thing, right? And I think as we grow older and go on social media and start using filters and all of this, we compare ourselves to almost dolls. And we're trying to reach this actual impossible standard of beauty. And when you think of a doll, what problems could they have? They're essentially perfect. They look perfect. They're made of, they have perfect skin, perfect hair. Their bodies are perfect. But this movie still showed that even when you have this perfect idea of how you look, you can still have problems. You can still feel broken. You can still feel not enough. And this is why I talk so much about how your physical does not actually define how you feel, and you have to do the work on the inner part and actually, go through the hardships and grow through your journey to become comfortable again in your body. And that is definitely something that you see Barbie kind of walk through in life to find out what is actually bothering her. And she goes from focusing so much less on her physical looks to more of how she's actually feeling and what she's doing in life, which I loved that whole messaging. Okay, to end off the pod here, let's just go through some of my favorite quotes from the movie. So I love the one where they said, "I work hard, so I deserve it." You need to validate your work and see your success. So I love that. Okay, I loved you have to go to the real world. You can go back to your regular life and forget any of this happened, or you can know the truth about the universe. The choice is now yours. I loved this moment in the movie because Barbie was faced with a choice, and you could see how easily she went for the heeled shoe, because we reach for comfort, we reach for what we know, we reach for, not taking that risk because it's scary. And you see how weird Barbie just was you don't actually have a choice. You have to do this. And sometimes life makes us not be able to choose and it makes us think we can choose, but we don't actually have the choice. Because remember, she said, like, I was just making you feel like you had a choice, but you actually don't have a choice. Life can do that sometimes, but sometimes you actually have to be the one to make that hard decision and actually take that leap of faith and not live in fear, fear of the what if. So that was really powerful because Barbie just pushed her into this and actually finding that root cause of what was going wrong in her life rather than just putting the heels back on and pretending like nothing ever happened. I also love this quote. Everybody turn to the Barbie next to you and tell her how much you love her. Compliment her. I actually just talked about how important compliments were in one of my recent TikToks because I was like having kind of a day where I walked into the bathroom at my work and I was looking in the mirror and I'm like, oh, my hair looks so bad. Like, I'm having such a bad hair day. And I'm not even kidding you. 10 seconds later, a girl walked in and she's like, oh my gosh, I love your hair. It's so beautiful. And I was like, what the heck? I was just hating on my hair and you just walked in here and told me that. And it just goes to show you how important, like, just giving someone a compliment is and how it can really make their day, because I thought about that all day long. So I love that line. Just like, if you see something that you appreciate or admire about someone, tell them, because it can completely turn their day around. I also loved when Barbie was dancing, I think it was, and someone said, Barbie, you look so beautiful. And she said, thank you, I feel beautiful. And I love that because I always talk about how confidence and beauty comes so much from inside rather than outside. And when you feel beautiful, when you feel confident, when you feel your best self, that radiates, and people see that. People literally see that radiating off of you no matter what your physical actually looks like. So I loved that. Speaking of compliments, I also really loved when Barbie complimented the older woman saying, you're so beautiful, and instead of saying thank you, she said, I know it. And I think that made Barbie feel so whole because she realized, like, that woman was so secure in her beauty, even if she had aged, even if she had these features that we often deem as unbeautiful, like wrinkles and just typical aging, and she just still knew that she was beautiful. I absolutely love that. I also love this one. You have to figure out who you are without me. And I think this goes back to when people say, like, you have to love you before you can love someone else. And I think you have to know who you are, and you can't rely on other people for your happiness. I want to be a part of the people that make meaning, not the thing that is made. I think so many of us long to bring meaning and to find where we can actually bring good into this world. I think that's something we all long for. I really love that. I cried too. It's actually kind of amazing. You know when you just have like a good cry? Like last night after watching this movie, I'm like, I just need a good cry. You know? Like, I'm not particularly sad about anything. I just need a good cry. Oh, such a good movie. If you guys haven't watched it and you made it through this podcast, I would recommend watching it. I'm not sponsored by Barbie or anything. I just really enjoyed the movie and I would love to hear your thoughts on it as well. This was kind of a random ramble episode, but I need to just sit down and get my thoughts out. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to give us a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify if you're listening on there. And if you're listening on YouTube, give this video a thumbs up and comment down below what you thought, as well as what you want to see in the next episode of Loud Talk with Lavi. But I want to remind you to stay confident, stay beautiful, and most of all, stay loud in this world. Make your voice matter, and, you know, above all, just always be rooting for yourself and be your biggest cheerleader, and give yourself the time and energy to validate who you are, because it's so important. But anyways, thank you so much for joining me in this episode of Loud Talk with Lavi. We're here every single Sunday morning. So remember to tell yourself something you love about your skin today. And remember to break down the walls of beauty standards one flaw at a time. And you will hear from me in the next episode of Loud Talk. Bye, everyone. Thank you for getting loud with me.